What's good?
Hey everyone.
What it do? What's poppin'? Her name is Ebony.
His name is Eugene.
And today's topic is, can you become too religious?
Can you?
3G, 3G, 3G. Yeah. I do what I do. I do what I do. You do it through me. 3G, I do it for you. I do it for you. Giving you all of me. 3G, I do what I do. I do what I do. You do it through me. 3G, I do it for you. I do it for you. Giving you all of me. 3G, 3G. Giving 3G. God, 3G. Glory, 3G.
Let's talk about it.
Let's talk about it.
So this topic is pretty subjective. So we're going to give you a little bit of our personal story before we give our answer. Would you like to start us off?
No, you can go ahead. You can start us off.
Okay, I'll do so. So, before we met, I was running around in the streets, making illegal money in a couple different ways. And that's something I was choosing to do. Nobody was making me, nobody was forcing me, and nobody was prompting me to do it at all. I chose to go that route to try to get to my ultimate goal, which was to own my own business. I didn't want to go the 9-to-5 route because I felt like once I did that, I'd be stuck there waiting for retirement. So I decided to take things into my own hand. What about you?
So for me, I was running the streets as well, trying to make money as well, hanging out with people that I didn't even know. Wasn't really doing anything productive, honestly. Before we met, it wasn't anything good that was coming from my situation. So yeah, it's a little bit about me.
So, before we met, she was running the streets, I was running the streets. So once we got together, what do you think happened? We were running the streets together until I got old. Yeah. Until we started wanting different things and wanting more for ourselves.
Right.
A shift started to happen.
Yeah.
I don't even remember the exact day, but I know we did talk about things before.
Yeah, I remember that you were telling me that you wanted to make positive music and that you wanted to be more positive. And I felt the same way as well. I wanted to make positive music as well. So there was something within us that was stirring up that wanted to do good. There was something was there.
There we go. So we started getting that feeling and we started to tap into that feeling and do different things.
Yeah.
Get into the Bible a little more.
Yes.
Start listening to affirmations and declarations and things like that. Now keep in mind, nobody told us to start doing that. It was something we felt from within and just started doing.
Yeah.
So at that point, we started looking for different churches within the neighborhood.
And now, mind you, one of the churches that we went to had the best chicken and waffles.
That they did. Back on track. So, we're going to different churches within the neighborhood, recognizing that every church had a different flow. God was working in different ways, but still feeding his people.
Yes.
So we ended up finding a church that we wanted to stay at, that we enjoyed.
We did.
And it's funny because it was a church that both of us had went to in our youth.
Yes.
At some point in time.
Yes.
So that wasn't by accident or coincidence. So everything was going fine. We're going to church. We're enjoying it. I think you had joined the choir.
I did, yes.
She joined the choir. And then not too much later after that, we were trying to find a place where we were living.
Yeah.
And things just weren't going as planned.
It wasn't.
So we ended up deciding to move out of state.
That's what we decided to do. No one told us to do anything. Our parents didn't tell us to do anything. The church didn't tell us to do anything. That's what we did.
And actually, everybody thought we was crazy.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
It does.
Because we wasn't really doing too much productive, as we said. And they didn't really have too much faith that we were going to be productive out here.
Right.
But
at all.
We are. And we were.
Yes.
Which we're thankful for.
We are thankful.
So, once we moved, within the first week, what did we do?
We found a church.
We found a church that nobody told us to go to.
No one.
Nobody referred it.
Nobody.
Looked it up online.
Found it online ourselves. Us. We were scrolling, looking through, found church, and that's how we got there.
Checked it out. Enjoyed it. Went back. Went back. And went back.
Yes.
And stayed there.
We did.
For multiple years.
We loved it.
Loved it, literally.
Yeah.
And after the first year, we started serving in many different ministries.
Yeah.
You know, she's doing a few ministries, I'm doing a few ministries, and we're loving it. We're enjoying it because it's something that we wanted to do.
Right.
So before, when we were doing our own thing out in the streets, we were living on the far left side of the spectrum.
Very far left.
And as we moved to a different state, got into the church and got really incorporated and ingratiated into the church, we moved to the far right side of the spectrum.
The far right.
By choice.
By choice.
So we got to see it all and kind of do it all in our own way. And then it got to a point in our lives where it felt like we were being led in a different direction than the church that we were going to was going.
Yeah.
And not saying because they're right, because they're wrong, because we're right or we're wrong. We just feel like God was doing something new.
Yes.
So we followed that feeling.
Yes.
And of course, they thought we were crazy once we decided to do that. So as you can see, there's a consistent theme of people thinking we're crazy, but that's all right because we all got a little crazy in us.
Yeah.
So let's give you a visual of the left side and the right side of the spectrum. So before we do so, if you had to categorize everybody in the world into 2 categories, what would you name those categories? What are some examples?
We can do Christians, non-Christians.
Christians, non-Christians.
We can do secular, non-secular.
Secular, non-secular.
We can do military, civilian.
Military, civilians.
We could do
So many different options, as you can see. But we believe that the 2 categories that you pick, it says a little bit about your current mindset and possibly your principles.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, the 2 categories we have are,
we choose believers and non-believers.
let's get into it. All right, so as you can see, we have our non-believers and we have our believers. We have this line right here in the middle that separates the 2. Once you cross that line, you do not believe. Once you cross this line, you are a believer. And as you can see, there's lots of different thoughts and different ways of living in both sides of the spectrum. All non-believers are not the same,
Right.
and all believers are not the same.
True.
So when you go to the far left, this person, nothing is spiritual, nothing is God related. They don't believe in God. They thank him for nothing. Anything that they do is because they're a good person. Then you go to the far right, and this person, everything is spiritual. Everything is God related. Everything is a Bible verse, and everything is about church. And at times they may seem to ignore or not recognize the natural part of life,
Right.
like the human part of life, like the imperfect part of us that we all have.
Right.
So in our minds, it's the believer's goal, job, and duty and mission to encourage the non-believers to become believers.
Right.
And as we said, there's a lot of different people in this spectrum. Some people over here are willing to talk about God and don't mind talking about God and don't just have a total negative thoughts and thought process about anything spiritual or religious. So we seem to have realized it's harder for us to reach people on this side when we're on the far right of the spectrum.
Yes.
Because a lot of times once we get here, we think things have to be a specific way. They have to be in a specific order, and it has to be done a specific way in order for God to bless it or use it. And we believe that God is working on this side of the spectrum as well as God working on this side of the spectrum.
Yes.
We believe that all good things come from God,
Yes.
come from God's spirit.
Yes.
And since we are all God's creations, his spirit is inside of all of us. But of course, the more you feed something and activate something, the more it's going to grow inside of you. All the good things that happen over here, buying someone's groceries, taking someone to work, dropping off somebody's kids, like all these different things to us is the spirit activating in someone.
Right.
You know, we believe that we're all sinners. And all the good things and great things that we do is from the Spirit of God.
And so the everything's so spiritual, those people may say that Eugene and I are lukewarm, but realistically, anyone within that believer section could be considered a lukewarm because no one is perfect.
It's a very good point. It's a very good point. No matter where you're at within the spectrum, far right, barely over here, wherever you're at, you can become lukewarm at any moment. So that's something that we must keep in mind, and stay vigilant. So, with all that being said, do we believe you can become too religious?
Yes, definitely.
So in our opinion, we believe you can, but it really depends on who you are, what you feel your purpose is, and who you feel you're called to.
Yes.
We believe we're called to help those who are non-believers become believers.
Yes.
And for us, it's easier to do that when we're not on the far right side of the spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
So that way we can talk more freely and not have to think that they have to do things a certain way or go this way, do that, step by step, or it's not going to work.
Right.
There's so many different ways that God works and uses people.
Right.
And we're excited to be on a journey to where he can use us in a different way. And we believe we're going to have a great impact.
Yes, amen.
And with that being said, if you're feeling the vibe, like and subscribe. And if you're not,
just give us a thumbs up.
That'll work. And we out. Religious people schemed and manipulated the slaying of Christ, not unbelievers. May we never become so fixated on our beliefs and practices of God that we discredit the beliefs and practices of others. Instead, we speak that God will continue working in the many different ways that he's already working, and that we believers will stop condemning one another and instead pray that God's will be done on this earth. May God continue to get the glory, regardless of any and all differences.